I'm going to call the meeting of the New London Select Board to order. It's October 26th, 2023, and the first item on our agenda is a public hearing accepting a grant in the amount of $413,000 from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Community Policing Services. And Chief Cobb is going to address this.
Thank you. So over 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago, I started looking more seriously at a new CAD, computer-aided dispatch, and RMS, records management system, for the police department and the communication center. And those types of programs are historically pretty costly, especially if you're converting from a system that we currently have to something that will meet not only our needs, New London's needs, but also the towns that we dispatch for. And so that project of researching different CAD and RMS systems began, and I looked at several and talked with other police departments about what they had also looked at, and then I discovered the opportunity for some congressionally directed spending money through Senator Jean Shaheen's office, and I've brought this to the board before, and so ultimately I applied for this grant and received it in the amount of $413,000 for a new CAD and RMS system for the New London Police Department and Communication Center. This software will benefit not only the town of New London, but all of the towns that we dispatch for, and it'll hopefully make our dispatching and systems and processes that we use in that software just go more efficiently, more smoothly. It has some more capabilities and things that we currently don't experience. So it's a big project, but one that I'm very excited about to bring to the town of New London.
Emily, what's the how long will it take to implement that to fit into your department?
Yep, sure. So I hope that we can go live by about the end of February, if all goes well. We certainly need some training days, and the data conversion that we'll need to do from all of the old systems to the new system will take some time, but I'm in now fairly constant communication with my representative from CSI, the new company. We talk several times a week now. So we're setting up different training for, again, not only the police department, but the fire department, the fire departments as well. So hoping for a go live by the end of February.
Okay. Bill, do you have any questions?
Sure, and Emily, this will come up tomorrow when we start talking about the budget, but could you talk to us about the ongoing fees and maintenance of the system, please?
Yes. So there's an ongoing maintenance fee, and the way that I structured the grant and applied for this money is that we're essentially purchasing it's the base model pricing. So we're purchasing the software itself, and then the ongoing cost will be the maintenance fees and the cloud storage fees going forward. And so those are costs that will be recovered. There's some revenue to be realized on the other side of that with the other towns that contribute to the dispatch center. So it'll be ongoing fees, and you'll see that in the budget tomorrow. That's one of the large increases that you'll see, and that we'll talk about more tomorrow, but ongoing maintenance fees.
You all set? Evie, questions? No, you're good? Does anyone have any questions for Chief Cobb with regard to this system? Joe?
Quick question. You said I won't be able to make budget committee meetings. Can you tell me what the annual cost is for the maintenance that will show in the budget?
Yes.
And I know you're stating that some of that, some fraction of that will be taken up by other towns.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the ongoing fees for this software is going to be $56,820, and again, some portion of that will be realized with revenue from the other towns that we dispatch for. And this type of software is different from what we've done traditionally. Traditionally, each town or each department pays the RMS company for that service or for that product. And this is going to be a little bit different. New London is going to hold the CAD and RMS for that, and the other towns will pay us for it. So they won't have to pay both us and the company. They'll be paying the town of New London, and then we pay the bill directly to the company.
What happens if they don't pay?
If who doesn't pay? The towns? Well, it's for the dispatching services and the RMS, so I guess if they don't pay, that would be a conversation that I would think that our town administrator would have with their town administrator or manager.
I'm going to note that this meeting is being recorded, and so if anyone has to make a comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and ask your question or make your comment, so everybody can hear it, okay? Are there any other questions or comments about this? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing on accepting the $413,000, and do I have a motion to accept the grant in the amount of $413,000?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all right, thank you, Chief Cobb.
Thank you.
All right, now the next item on our agenda is Anthony DeLuzio, am I pronouncing your name correctly? From Collier's Project Leaders, and he's going to talk to us about a police and communications facility. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I met Chief Cobb a couple years ago now at what's called the Massachusetts Police Chiefs Vendor Show, where it's a trade show for police throughout New England are invited. And I represent a company called Collier's Project Leaders. It's part of a larger company called Collier's International. Many people, if you see the little blue multicolored logo, it's a real estate investment, commercial real estate holding company. It has real estate brokers' offices. It works with developers to seek out land and large commercial development properties. And what I do is I represent the company at the smaller local level in managing all of our police and fire station projects at the municipal and state level. So police, state police barracks, as well as any municipal police and fire station projects throughout New England. We have our project management is headquartered out of Madison, Connecticut, where we have about 350 individual project managers, civil engineers, architects, engineers of all the different trades that service our projects. The group that I head up with specifically to public safety projects works in what we typically refer to as owner's project manager. So we're hired directly by the municipality to represent them as their owner's project manager. We help building committees and municipalities put together requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, for architectural services, for construction services. We manage those entities from inception through move-in if the project is successful, and relocation. We specialize in coordination of technical aspects of those projects, such as radio, communications, dispatch, site, civil, water, sewer, all of the engineering disciplines that go into the development of these projects. In the work that I've submitted, I don't know how much of it's been made public, I've submitted to the board some previous projects that I think represent the project scope and magnitude that New London would be looking at here. We have a proposal in for some very, what we call short upfront services. That would be to help identify 3 or 4 sites, put those in a category so that we can then talk about the hierarchy of why one site rate rises in the equation to the most beneficial site. That might be it's owned by the town already. Does it have a cost impact to it? Does it have wetland restrictions? Does it have endangered species habitats, turtles, salamanders, all the wonderful things that can impact a project? So we'll go through that as those sites are brought to the table for consideration. And we catalog all that information so that everybody sees the due diligence that's being done. Concurrent with that, we would put together a request for a proposal for architectural services. That service would come in and work more closely with the community and with the police department to develop square footages, dispatch areas, storage areas, booking, holding, prisoner processing, and detainee areas, making sure that those areas are all uniform to the Americans Disability Act, that they're safe for the occupants, they're safe for the public coming to visit the police station, whether you're gathering records, whether you need to interview and have a conversation with a patrol officer, you do that in a safe and secure environment. On the detainee side, we want to make sure that detainees are held in a safe area, that their provisions for their privacy, safety, and security are there in the structure that supports the police operations. That's probably not clearly evident to people if you haven't been through the police station as it currently exists, or if you haven't been through one of a number of police stations that don't meet those criteria today. That's what we bring to the table. We manage that process, and hopefully at this stage we're working towards getting to a town meeting. So we want to get the full project funding. So we need to know site cost, design cost, how much square footage we're building or is proposing to be designed. We'll create the full budget all the way from, like I said, site through furniture, move-in, allocation, dispatch centers, working with your communications and radio vendors, tower vendors. Chief and I have talked about dead spots and things that we could possibly correct in the radio communication cycle. We put all that together. We then put it into a spreadsheet because every community wants to know not only how much it's going to cost in total, but when do we spend those? So we're able to develop a cash flow that if this is a 2 to 3 year project between now and the time we move in, you don't need to spend it all in one shot, right? We don't need millions of dollars appropriated today, but we'll set up that cash flow for you so that you know at each increment how much money you need to get to the next phase, how much money you may have saved or overspent in the previous phase, and you're able to bond and carry those funds throughout a funding cycle that's appropriate for the project. And we do all this on your behalf. Often what we say to folks is, you all have your day jobs. This is our day job. This is what I do day in and day out every day, whether it's a Board of Selectmen meeting, Planning Board meeting, Conservation Commission hearing. I'm your representative representing the town's best interest at all of those events and all of those meetings that occur, so that that information is constantly being cycled, coordinated, communicated in a succinct and clear manner across the many entities that are going to be involved throughout the project. So I think that's probably kind of a long-winded introduction of what we do and what we provide for services, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Bibi, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was hoping you would go over this proposal a little bit.
Great.
But, yep, unless anybody has other questions before that, okay.
So the proposal is based on communications with the chief thus far, working through the things that we talked about: site selection, designer selection, oversight of any design services and programming and design. One of the conversations we had as we were driving around looking at sites, making sure that any building that a designer proposes contextually fits the neighborhood, right? And there's various architecture throughout the town. We want to be able to present that to you all, that we're not coming in here building a massive city police station. And I think from our portfolio, you see the work that is similar in nature. So managing that designer, not only to schedule, but managing their design efforts. Development of project costs. So we will put together everything from the day we're hired to what you might spend on move-in, furniture, relocation, everything in between, gets laid out in a spreadsheet, and then we put timelines to that. So if we're trying to get to a spring town meeting, what do we need to have in our boxes checked off to get there? From that town meeting, what do you want the next phase to look like? So that's what this sets us up to do over the next several months, all the way through construction. We've kind of given a basic timeline of what we feel site selection, concept design through March. If we're successful then, the design phase for a project of this 11,000, somewhere in there, square foot facility would probably take until the end of 2024. You need 3 to 4 months to line up all your subcontractors and general contractors, and then a construction phase. So what we've done is we've put together that initial concept at about $40,000 to get through to the next town meeting. And what you will get is similar to the books that I think corporate sent out to you. It'll give you a complete overview of what work has been done, what work is scheduled in the next phases, how much that work is anticipated to cost. It would provide elevations, floor plans, site plans, excuse me, everything that you would need at a town meeting to go to that next phase.
So you're thinking town meeting, our town meeting is March, so this full thing would be done for a town meeting in March 2025?
The study phase.
Evie, did you say 25 or 24?
24.
4,
Oh, 24?
March 24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And caveat to that would be you picking a site, right? If we get hung up in site and we're not able to make a selection, then we're not able to advance.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Are you good?
I'm good at the moment.
Okay,
I might have more.
All right.
I'm all set.
You're all set, okay. Does anyone in the public have any questions for Mr. Deluzio? Bill, Bob, excuse me.
My name is Bob Bowers, and I'm a resident of New London, and I'm confused, as no doubt are many residents of New London, as to why the proposal from Colliers presented is being considered. It proposes to hire a consultant for $40,000 to do no more than help the selectmen pick a piece of land and pick a designer for a possible new police station. Other phases follow, but that is the $40,000 cost for that step. I am hoping the selectmen can give me an explanation that would be helpful. My confusion stems from this. The town had a committee to advise the selectmen on possible parcels for this purpose. This committee was chaired by Chief Cobb and had among its 7 members Police Lieutenant Keith, a member of the Planning Board, 3 members of the Building Committee, and a citizen representative. It met 9 times and considered 32 parcels as potentially workable for the purpose. In March of 2022, a full year and a half ago, it put forth for the selectmen's consideration 2 parcels and a secondary parcel, the Bewley parcel on Newport Road and the Broom parcel, the former Sigma Data building. The report noted that each of these parcels would require much deeper and thorough analysis. The Bewley parcel was overwhelmingly rejected by voters at town meeting this past March by a margin of 78% opposed to its purchase. Since that time, the selectmen have done nothing of significance to analyze the pros and cons of the Broom parcel, the cost of site development, the cost of renovation of the existing building on that site, the cost of construction of a new addition to that building, and all the other costs associated with such a project, both financial and aesthetic. Nor have the selectmen provided residents with an assessment of the cost of renovating the existing building to meet the needs of the police department. At the selectmen's work session on August 30, the selectmen proposed additional sites, including, to their credit, the McEnroe property abutting the current police station. But the proposed contract under consideration does not include in this $40,000 that Colliers will provide a complete and detailed report on the issues Chief Cobb's committee stated needed resolution, nor does it require a detailed report on what actual needs of the police department could and could not be addressed at the existing site, the Bucher Building. A significant segment of the residents of New London do not believe a new police station should be built on a new location. Rather than one more study, residents want a clear explanation of why a new police station is needed at a new location, and a precise, clear, fact-based, and analytical report by the selectmen and signed by them on both a new site and building and for the existing site and building, so that they can understand and compare the work proposed and the cost for each. That report should also include, as noted by Selectman Casey at the Selectmen's work session meeting on September 6, 2023, the costs of renovation, repairs, and all other costs of converting the Bucher Building to new and different uses and purposes if the police station is moved. None of this information is contemplated by the proposal currently being considered by the Selectmen. In fact, Collier's proposal actually excludes preparation of that information in the $40,000 price, referring instead to additional phases at additional costs, which would later have the input of engineers, architects, and other professionals. The residents need and will appreciate a report from the Selectmen setting forth this information and the Selectmen's reason for concluding that a new station at a new site is the only solution for the town. Thank you.
Thanks. You want to comment? No. I think the point of hiring Colliers is so that we can answer a number of the questions that you pointed out, Bob. In the past, whenever we've tried to bring forth a proposal based on the fact that the police department does not feel that their space is adequate or safe, we've been told that we should have it all designed and we should have all the costs involved with it presented to the public. And this is what we're trying to do now. We're trying to find a site and then plan for that so that the voters of this town can see what it will cost to do. But the bottom line on this is that our police department does not feel that they are in a space that adequately serves them and serves the town of New London. Yeah, Peter? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bob. I thought Peter was raising his hand behind you.
I have a comment.
Oh, okay.
It's on? Yes, it's Bob Lyon, a resident of New London. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us. I just have one question of you. Was it proposed to you as part of this process that you would need to evaluate the current police station for possible renovation when you talk about sites? Is that part of what you were charged with doing?
It is a piece of the study that will be performed by an architect. So when I talk about preparing an RFQ or a proposal for design services, bringing that design service entity on brings with it a code review consultant so that we can do a formal code review of the existing building and its operational ability to perform as it needs to, right? Right now, there's a set of steps out there. You know, it's not very ADA accessible. So in that first study, we look at the existing station and what its deficiencies are. Can we fix those in this existing structure with the inefficiencies, with the radios, with the communications, with all the things that are proposed for the police? Does it make sense to move elsewhere?
So part of your final report will be an evaluation. It will be an evaluation. So you haven't already decided that that's a non-starter?
No.
Okay, you have an open mind about that. So my second question was, I was just kind of surprised to hear that it's already been decided by the police department that that site, it's wholly insufficient. So it's contrary to what you're going to be doing. So if the police department is saying they can't possibly use that space, and I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if the police department is saying that, why are you going to waste your time looking at renovating it?
Because what we're going to start with is, how do you want the police department to operate, right? And then there's national standards for how police stations should be designed and built. Whether I'm looking at this existing facility or another, you start to go through the process of, here's all the things that this current building does not support, right? And that's not, I'm not saying that it can't support it. I'm saying it doesn't support it in its current condition. The next phase to that is, what would it take to make this facility meet these accommodations.
But the police department's already saying that that site is not sufficient. That's what I heard. Am I wrong? Am I wrong on that? Because
Well-
I'll correct myself.
Have you written the Harriman report that was done in 2000?
No, I'm just talking about what happened tonight. So I just heard the
going
chief
back
say
that
that
far-
it's not sufficient.
Well, I think you're splitting hairs here. We've looked at this for a long, long time, and we've had studies done on it, and the thing is, we do not feel that this site is the right site for the police.
Then why ask him to go spend the money to have him look at it? Take that out of the budget. Maybe it's $30,000 now instead of $40,000, and we save $10,000. I mean, I'm fiscally conservative. Taxes might be going up. Why would I be spending money on something that's already been decided from one of the selectmen just said, it's already been decided, it's not sufficient? So I think you're wasting your time to look at it, honestly.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you for the time, and thank you for your open mind on this as well.
It has been, believe me, been years of open-mindedness. Okay, BB, you had a comment?
Yes, I want to ask you, when you heard the comments from Mr. Bowers and what he is looking for to come out of this report, what we've heard people asking for, that they want a full cost estimate of a project. Do you feel that that's something you'll be able to deliver to us when you hear his comments, is that something you'll be able to deliver to us, what he's
Yes.
saying?
We put together
Yeah.
at any stage of the project, sorry, is that on? Okay. At any stage of the project, we put together a full and complete
Yep.
project budget. And that's everything that we hear from you all. I don't make this stuff up, right?
Right.
You need to tell me, hey, we're looking at XYZ site, and it's a $500,000 cost, I'll put that in the budget. Now, there's other things in there that I have more experience and knowledge of the cost, right? We need a 100-foot radio tower. I know what those costs are. I know how much the ground structure is to support the tower.
Yep.
Now, I need to look to the chief and say, okay, I know what the tower costs, how many antenna are we putting on it? And there's a budget for those.
Yep.
Everything to, we're gonna pick up 5,000, 8,000 square feet of furniture, and we're gonna move it out of here to another space. I know what that costs.
Yeah.
You tell me, leave all the junk there, we're done with it, we're gonna buy all new. I can tell you what the new's gonna cost, and I'll put that in the budget. So it's a work in progress, and it's a team effort of all of you, your decision-making and your direction. I'm the consolidator of the information. Bad in gives us bad out, right?
Right.
And we strive not to have bad information go in. So we want to look at the existing. We want to tell you, you know what? I've seen the existing building. It's not going to work in its current state. To renovate it is going to trigger additional work because it's attached to this building. You know, and what does that trigger work mean? And do you still want to have a shared driveway at the end of that? Probably not.
Right. When you've done these projects before in another town where maybe that town has already decided that they want to build on a new site, is it part of your typical process every time you do this to look at the existing, what they have, to determine their needs when you're trying to is that part of your normal process to look at the existing facility?
It is, because we need to look at what you have today, how it's functioning, more importantly, how is it not functioning for you? You know, before I decided you need a 5-bedroom house, I need to know what's wrong with the 3 that you have. You know, and we look at it in a very simplistic view to understand what's not working. I can't propose a new building if I'm going to propose the same thing that doesn't work here. So I need to understand what doesn't work, what that expectation is to make that work is just a natural progression of that thought process. Because at some point, we need to say, this just doesn't work. And it might be a cost. It might be you don't have the footprint to expand. If you need 5 bedrooms and we don't have that much space. It might be the lot size, right? You're dealing with a shared driveway. So I'm guessing I can't blow out the side by 10 feet.
Right.
I've got a park here. I don't know how much more you want to disturb that if we add on 5,000 square feet into the park. Is that the right thing? But that study of what we have today what works and what doesn't is going to be the decision that you all have to make.
Right. Has Chief Gobb supplied you already with the previous reports that have been done? The Chair Kidder mentioned the Harriman report and the others. Has she shared that? And will you use that and the subcommittee's report on the different sites that they did, that they spent a lot of time on? Will she be sharing that? Will you be able to use that?
I have not seen that information to date. I am familiar with Harriman. I've worked with them in the past. But yes, I want all that information to start formulating my decision-making and my information process. I mean, any study that you've done is going to give us a starting point.
I shared with Tony that there's been a lot of studies and a lot of reports and things, but I can certainly send him the links to everything on the website to make it a little easier for him to find, certainly. But it was rather preliminary at that point, so I didn't want to bombard or overwhelm him with
Yeah, it's all there.
the 100-page reports
Yeah.
quite yet,
And
but
even
he knows
today,
that they're there.
I've started with a site matrix, and it's a document that we use to catalog sites. We went around today and we looked at sites, but the fact is, I'm not on board yet. I'd love
Right,
to be on
correct.
board.
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't
Yeah, you're not
started to
getting
do all
paid
my
yet.
homework
Right.
yet in advance.
I just want to understand the process that you would be going through
Yeah.
if we decided to move forward with this.
Absolutely.
100%. Okay.
Bill?
So, many of you recall that in the past 2 years, I've been a bit of a denier about the need for good project management. Phil's smiling back there, I can see. But this room that we're sitting in now is a living example, I think, of what good project management can do for us. This project was small compared to what a new police and communications center will be. And I think that the key thing that you said right from the beginning, Tony, is that you will be the owner's project manager. And I think this is what many of the people who've been pushing us for a long period of time have asked, is that we get an independent, experienced project manager to represent the owner, the town of New London. And in that respect, I think that's exactly what you're proposing to do. So I applaud the chief for finding you. I applaud you for what you're proposing to do. And I think we should let you get on with it. One of the things you may find is that finding a site here in New London is not quite as easy as it is in some places. In contrary to what Mr. Bowers said, the rejection of the so-called Bewley property was first of all rejected by the Selectmen, not by the town. It was then a petition that was voted against at the town meeting, a petition brought by residents. And that was rejected, as far as my notes and understanding were, because the seller wanted a price greater than the assessed value. That's why the Selectmen rejected it in the first place. So we have a lot of issues here about the value of property in New London is very high, and the desire of the town to have to buy, or the need of the town to have to buy a new piece of property is creating a lot of tension around that issue of whether or not we can arrive at a price that would be acceptable to the town that doesn't exceed what independent parties have said the property is worth. So it's a sticky question. I guess I would say to you, assuming we approve this contract tonight, will we be able at some point fairly quickly as you get started in this process say, whoops, we don't think we can continue on at this point because we can't even begin to think about a site? That would be a question that I'd have to ask you.
Yes, so if I'm hired, if Colliers is hired and we're successful here tonight, I want to start on two parallel tracks. One is the site selection matrix that I've discussed and the development of the RFP and the review of all the existing information. So I want both of those things happening simultaneously. Because when we get to analyzing sites, we need to be able to do what's called a site fit analysis, a test fit. And that's some square footage of building, some area of parking. We've got patrol parking, we've got secured area, we've got public parking. We need to make sure that any site that you're looking at supports those site features. Does it have water? Does it have utilities? Some of what we drove by as soon as I pulled up to it, you know, I could tell there's wetland vegetation. So it might be a very big site, but how much of it is wetland replication? And so we need to start documenting all of those things so that when it's presented to the town and the townsfolk see it, it's a single document. We're not all guessing about what was wrong with this site or that site. How much was this site? How much did, no, that's not really correct. We want to be able to catalog all that. We want to be able to not only manage the data, but manage the information and the story that comes out of that data. Because if we're all telling the same story about the same piece of property, then you all are going to have a much easier decision in selecting a site, whether or not we go forward with a particular site.
And because you are independent, you know nothing about us now, I applaud the idea that the chief has finally come forward with, that we employ somebody like you who will provide us with a totally objective view of the world. So I'm certainly in favor of this proposal.
Thank you. And I also don't have a dog in the fight, right? It's not my money.
That's right.
It's not my site. I'm looking at sites purely from a technical standpoint. Do they support the intended cause? And if they do, or if they don't, you can pick the worst site on the list and go forward if you so choose. My job is simply to lay out the data. Does it support the end result successfully or not?
Okay.
Thank you.
Phoebe?
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
I just remembered, I'm looking at your scope of work description in phase one, project administration, development of project communications plan among team members, town administration, and the public. Who do you consider to be the team members?
So typically, there is a building committee or there's a work group, depending on what community we're in, city councils, large, small communities. Staff from the department, might be a technology officer, could be any one of a number of people. And that's really up to you all to tell me, Tony, here's how we want our communication to go. Some communities today want everything on a website. We're going to set up a project page on the town's website. Look here for documents. I've had a town recently that set up a portal on their site. Their IT director gave me a password where I can actually load documents to that website.
Yeah.
And everything I do goes up there, weekly, daily, monthly,
Okay.
all the way through construction. We put construction reports up there and plans. Communication is important
Key.
to us.
Yeah.
We want to put it on there as item number one, but you get to decide. It's your information. If nothing goes on the public website until it's voted and accepted by the select board, that's great. I want to follow your lead in that communication information process.
Okay.
I don't want surprises out there. You didn't know it was being posted. You're getting 15 calls and 37 emails. I'm not here to make a headache for anybody. But you got to tell me what my rules of engagement are. Because my information gets out there. Even here tonight, I'm sure there's emails somewhere. I get 47 emails tomorrow. I'm referring them to Chief Cobb at this point, unless you direct me otherwise. Sorry.
Right.
I'm not going to communicate with the general public unless you tell me otherwise.
Okay, good?
Been down
I
that
think so.
road.
I think so.
All right. Colin?
Evening.
Good evening.
Is this on? Yeah. Colin Beasley, resident of New London. Two questions, actually. The first one is, I'm just trying to get clarity. What gets delivered, in order for a town meeting in March, it has to be resolved by January, I assume, for purposes of warrants and articles and that sort of thing, is that right? So what is getting delivered in phase one?
In phase one, you would want a site selection matrix identifying the most preferred site or maybe one or two most preferred sites. You would have a site plan drawn by architect, engineering professional that shows parking layout. Here's what the building would look like, the square footage. You would have a full program of what the police department has described for every office space, storage room, hallway, detention, every room in there, totaling up to a total square footage. adjacencies go in there, so we want the chief next to the admin, whatever those may be. That would give us a floor plan, maybe a second floor plan if we can't fit it all on one space. You would have a complete budget that says, okay, here's the preferred site, here's the total square footage we're building based on the floor plan that you have, here's the elevation of what the building would look like given the context of the neighborhood that the site is proposed for. You would have a full schedule that says, if you agree on this in March, we go to December with design, we go to February or March with bidding, we start construction in 12, 14 months later. So that's the report that you would get.
So that will all be done in the next 2.5 months?
Yep.
That's impressive. Good, thank you.
Yep.
I have a more general question. So I was at a budget committee meeting, actually a subcommittee meeting on reserves, and one of the reserve issues that we talked about was the digitization project. And in that conversation, there was some inquiries about where are we with that plan, and we were informed that we aren't anywhere because the town doesn't yet have the resources to manage the consultant that we would suggest hiring with that project that was approved 2 years ago. So my general question is, who's going to project manage this budget item that has not been approved by the town when we can't project manage a consultant for a budget item we approved by the town 2 years ago?
I don't know how to answer your question, Colin. I don't think, I think in looking at digitization, because of what it entails with staff to do that, I don't think it's risen to the top of a real priority, like the police station, or sidewalks, or any number of other things. Now, I realize that's something that you feel is important, but I think if anybody's looking for old records, they can certainly find them. We will find them for you if that's where you're going with this. But that's not something that I think is crucial at this time for the town of New London.
Yeah, so I'm not looking for old records. I'm really looking for the process of how we're managing voted on items from the point of view of budgets and how those items are being addressed by the town. And if there aren't resources to perform the work that the town has agreed is necessary and voted on at a town meeting, then we should figure out how to allocate those resources to get that work done. This project hasn't been voted on at all, but we're finding the resources to do it. So it just seems, it's a curiosity to me that we have things that the town has said, yes, I want to do that, and we're appropriating money, but we don't do anything. And then we have this project that the town has not voted on, and we're finding the money, and we're going to project manage it. It's just, and that's a comment on my part, not a question.
All right, I'm going to say one more thing, Bill.
Yeah, please, yep.
I think what I have heard over the years is that we need a new police station. Now, I realize that's maybe not what you've heard,
Yeah.
but I hear it repeatedly.
Yeah.
And people are saying, why are we still looking at this? In 2018, the conclusion of the Board of Selectmen unanimously said, we need to find a new police station. You were on the Capital Improvement Program Committee that time, and you agreed with that.
Yep.
You signed off on that.
Yep.
So then things sort of fell apart because members changed on the board, and that's okay, that happens, different points of view. But the point of view of this select board is that we need to have a new police station somewhere, and we need to start that process, even though we know that there will be roadblocks all along the way.
And for the record, because you raised it, so you're right, I was on the capital improvement plan, I was a newbie, new person on town government's volunteerism. And I had not yet read all the reports that I subsequently read and drew different conclusions. All I would say is, you're right, there are people who say we need it, and there are people who say we don't need it. Perhaps the right vote in March is, do we want one or not? Maybe we ought to start with giving the citizens of the town the right to vote on what they should do with the police station.
Well, you know, we have had a master plan, and it
Yeah.
was indicated in that
Yeah.
people were in favor of it. We had a number of meetings regarding it
Yeah.
at the SAU building, and it was favorable. People want to move the police station. They want a building that is suitable for them because they appreciate the work that is done here. So, you know, it just depends on which group you get and what priorities there are.
Yeah.
And as you all know, anyone sitting here for a while knows that the police station is a priority of mine.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bill?
Just to follow up on Colin's comment about the digitization project, I think that's something we'll talk about more to Colin tomorrow. That's, it's not one versus the other, so we will have a full discussion about that tomorrow rather than pursuing it tonight.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay. Peter, did you have a question?
Yes. Peter Bianchi, a resident of Long Sweat. I'm kind of curious to mention how many of you are working on police and fire stations.
In New England, how many are ongoing now, approximately? Projects that your company, or you as a subcontractor of this company, currently has going on?
So I'm currently working on 4. The company is probably working on closer to a dozen.
In,
New England.
okay. The other question would be, the 40,000 you're talking about now would be the initial startup to get this process going. Do you have any estimates on projects' total cost to the client when it's all said and done? I understand that everyone's a little bit different, but this is still a town of 4,000 people, and you must have some projects of similar magnitude. Of the overall cost at the end of the whole thing, should we proceed for your end of it?
So I can't speak tonight about the total square footage that you need. The square footage of construction is the most expensive item of a project like this. But if you were to ask me what should we be budgeting, I would tell you your all-in costs, design, architects, OPM, engineers, furniture, radio towers, communicate, all the things that, you know, you take the roof off the building, you shake it, and everything that falls out, you're probably somewhere in the $600 to $800 a square foot range, all in. And I think that's a number that people can kind of equate to whatever role they have in life. It's not, you know, $200 a square foot.
Right.
It's public construction. These buildings are designed and they must meet what's called the Essential Facilities Code. So when we look at buildings, town hall literally can fall down. Most communities keep running. When you look at the building code as it describes essential facilities, police, fire, ambulance, hospitals, those things need to be the last building standing. So they're built with a much different structural integrity, a much different fire retardant construction. So it drives the cost down.
So this cost you're talking about, $600 a square foot? 8? Eight, okay. Yeah, okay. Does that include any land purchase or construction or water, sewer?
Water, sewer, everything except the actual procurement of land.
So that excludes the land purchase, okay. Okay. My general concern now is with the Selectmen. This $40,000 would be appropriated under this year's budget and spent before town meeting? Is that the intent?
No, go ahead.
It's already, all the money that we have available for this year, Peter, has already been appropriated at the last town meeting, and we will find the $40,000 within the money that was appropriated in March.
So, right now, there's an extra $40,000 in the town budget that can pay for this before town meeting. Is that what you're saying, Bill? Okay. It seems, I sort of agree with what Bob said and Colin said. I think the town of London has beat this horse into the ground. I think we studied it. The select boards have studied it. Committees appointed by the town have studied it. We've gone through many sites. And to reinvent the wheel now with an unknown cost, total cost, before we have a real demand by the citizens that we really need it. I think we are just going over grounds we've already covered. And I know people say, oh, well, we haven't really covered it, but for the last several years, we've already had projects of this, we want this land, we want this land, we can't have this land, this was wet, this one's too far out. So I think that we're really wasting our time reinventing this wheel right now. I don't think it's necessary, regardless of how people may feel about whether the police station is needed or not. Everyone has their own opinion on that. I think the town of London has been a strong supporter of the police department in my tenure in your seats. I don't think there's anything that the police department has asked for, whether it be guns, cars, equipment, dogs, whatever they wanted, the town of London has always been supportive. So I think the town of London is very supportive of the police department. The question now, I think, we're beating into the ground again, is will the 9,000 plus square feet we have now suffice, or we have to spend millions of dollars to build a 10,000 square foot building in some other location? So I'm against spending this $40,000 now, and I think it should be, whole thing should be postponed until you have a definitive opinion of the town people at a town meeting. Thank you.
John?
John Ellis, resident. I had a question, Tony, for you first, then to the selectmen. You had mentioned there's a 5-step process that you go through, starting with the site selection. Once you finish each of those 5 steps, do you report that to the selectmen then?
As we discussed communication, however they would like that communicated, I certainly don't see going through the whole process blindly and issuing something in January. We're going to be working very closely. If the committee, if the select board wanted monthly updates, perfectly comfortable doing that at their meetings. I do that quite regularly. If it's simply loading up documents to a public portal that everybody can access, that would be another great option.
Right, so after each of these 5 steps, then you would report to someone or the committee on what you found. For example, the site, you'd say, here are the options that you have, and then you have to decide on that. Correct. Okay, once that's done, will you be making those reports public to us so that we can follow it as it goes through each of the 5 steps that's been instructed by Tony?
We have to. It's a public forum,
Okay,
public body.
Of course.
But as they're completed,
Sure.
not at the end.
Right, yeah.
I want this to be as transparent a process as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments? Okay. What is your pleasure for tonight, Bill?
I move that we accept the proposal from Colliers to undertake a, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a motion. Oh.
Wait a minute, Vahan. Bill's in the middle of a motion. Let him finish. Okay, go ahead.
I move that we accept the proposal from Colliers to do the initial phases of a study, being the owner's project manager for a new police and communications center for New London.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Comments? Vahan, would you like to say something?
My name is Vahan Sarkeesian. I'm not making a comment on what Bill just said. And I'm not completely sure, even though I've lived in town for 40-some odd years, 47 years, I think. But anyway, and I'm not totally against a new police station, but I'm a little bit confused. I know the selectmen want a new police station. I know the chief wants a new police station. I have toured the police station myself a number of times over the years, one just recently. But what I'm confused about is you as a board want to always spend money for studies. We've had all kinds of studies. I've heard the word Harriman study. I don't know what the hell they did, but I don't really know what they came up with. I know you as a board appointed a committee of respectable citizens in this community with a lot of knowledge who studied the buildings and who studied the police station. And I think, or I heard that their recommendation was that we should just not demolish the building that we have, but rehab it and add on to it and everything else and possibly buy the house next door. So before this gentleman who speaks very nicely and he sounds pretty smart too, but before he studies, goes into this $40,000 study saying he's going to do two things at the same time, I think the first thing he should be doing is spending time, and he says he's independent and clear thinking, he should study what we have here and come up with his own study independently and say whether we need a new police station or what do we have to do to make this police station work to keep our chief happy and to keep you people happy and naturally to keep the citizens of New London happy without spending millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thanks, Vahan. Okay, are there any other comments, questions? Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we're going to hire you to do your work.
Great.
And we look
Thank you.
forward to receiving all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You tell me how, and that's how we'll
All right,
deliver it.
we'll figure
I
that
know
out.
That's always, a touchy point for communications, but I'm sure we can work it out.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Okay, Phil Sherman and Bob Harrington are going to speak to us about the asset management plan. Is that correct? Hi, Phil. And if anybody notices, we have no new heating units in here. They've finally been replaced, so, and I think they look great.
I'm told I'm supposed to tell you my name. I'm Phil Sherman.
Just for those who are listening.
But Bob says he's got my back, so keep track of him there. So several years ago, or for several years, Bob Harrington...
You're supposed to do that for the recording.
To state your name for the recording.
I did. I said I'm Phil Sherman.
Oh, did you? Okay, sorry.
I live in New London until I get run out of town. Could I take a rabbit trail and just bring you up to speed on where we are on the
Sure.
money you've already spent?
Yeah.
As you see, the radiators are in, they're early, fortunately enough. There is a little bit of basement piping left to do. I told them that banging on pipes during your budget hearing tomorrow was not going to be a good thing. So they'll schedule that over the next few days next week, and some other minor loose ends on HVAC stuff. But we're coming to the end here. And we actually have heat now, so we're in good shape in case the weather changes back. So, for several years, Bob Harrington and Nancy Barthol, then the former BFC, and now a couple of us working with Bob and Nancy, have been investigating ways to put more order to the maintenance and financial planning involving the town-owned buildings. Currently, some ongoing maintenance is being done by town employees, some by contractors, and the needs for many building element replacement and repair frequently only look to the next budget cycle. I'd like to give full credit to the town volunteers and the town staff that created the capital improvement plan, which we're going to discuss later in this meeting. The CIP that I read online indicates that facility maintenance and improvements are included in the plan, but then generally sets a $50,000 threshold for inclusion. Some roof work, some generator heating system replacement costs are identified, along with expansion of the fire department, reorganization of part of the academy building, and construction of a new police department. What's not included are the majority of the items that fall under the $50,000 threshold. Doors wear out, major painting and refinishing needs occur, trim, siding, and gutters have a lifespan. Fire alarm systems usually have a lifespan of no more than 20 years or so. The town has, at last count, 30 buildings. We think we have that right at this point. Perhaps 10 of these I'll consider primary structures, but sewer pump stations, beach restrooms, sand sheds, and the like are frequently as important to the mission of the town. A single small building can easily create a budget need that's far from trivial. Witness the money spent on one of the gazebos recently. Bob has included $50,000 in next year's budget to address the facility asset management plan recommended by the CIP. This involves a day-to-day maintenance scheduling tracking system and a more detailed, what I'll call a needs over time assessment, usually thought of as a capital plan, but somebody grabbed that term already. So I just don't want to confuse people. I'm here tonight to recommend that the Selectmen approve expending a portion of those funds immediately under this budget year, with the hope that the funds included for building maintenance in next year's budget, the actual maintenance, be put where they best belong. Bob, Nancy, Peter Hoagland, Mike Williams, and I have interviewed numerous software vendors and persons capable of doing the survey. The desired approach is to use a simple program called iWork, it's spelled with a Q because it's a computer program, for day-to-day maintenance. This basically would help Nancy know when something is due and who's to complete the work. The program would include each building element that requires repetitive inspection, testing, or maintenance with the schedule and the responsible party. A comprehensive knowledge base results, including what needs to be done, what's done by town staff, what's done by contractors, and maybe most importantly, what's not being done due to the lack of funding. The needs over time part of the study basically is a deeper dive into the types of issues initiated in the CIP, but typically with more on the order of a 20-year look ahead and conducted by individuals with training and experience in the various building elements. This is similar to the due diligence reports some of you may be familiar with that are generated prior to someone purchasing a commercial building. Educated guesses as to when a need will occur with an opinion of probable cost is assigned to each element spread out over time. This type of report usually wants to be updated and course corrected on something like a 5-year cycle. Things don't wear out exactly when you think they're going to wear out. Costs don't stay the same, even if you account for some predicted inflation. Well, this report is not intended to be a financial reserve study per se. The information should flow easily into the analysis of reserve funds or baseline yearly budget needs. We've not at this time generated a detailed scope of work, but we believe that the study will be on the order of $20,000 to $30,000, with something less than $5,000 for software. Assets other than buildings, vehicles and the like, are left for the next budget, and that's part of Bob's $50,000. As I said, we believe the iWork, I guess it is, program is best suited for the need, which also happens to be the least expensive program we looked at. We believe that a company named Team Engineering out of Bedford, New Hampshire, is the best group to conduct the study. In summary, I believe that completing this work now is warranted based on a long-standing need to better understand where the building maintenance and improvement dollars should be assigned, and while it's not known whether this can be completed in time to help develop the next budget, it would allow whatever funds are included in that budget to be spent in the proper place. If approved, we would proceed to develop a detailed scope of work and obtain firm pricing. Lastly, if this schedule is not supported by the Selectmen, I would strongly recommend that the funds be provided in the next budget as requested by Bob.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
That's very detailed. Bill, do you have any questions?
Bob's not going to say anything?
Bob thought I had a better opportunity to put this in front of you than he did, so.
So I'm frankly I'm not clear on what you're proposing. Do you have a written proposal? Are you proposing that we spend $25,000 now to do iWork and that we spend $50,000 another plan?
No,
I don't understand what you're proposing.
The 25 to 35 now would come out of the 50,000 in next year's budget. We're simply talking more about when that be done than if it be done.
And the work would be done by the end of,
As I said, I'm not sure that it can be completed before whatever the deadline on the budget development program is, when you'd really need to know, this needs a new roof, that needs a new generator, whatever
first
it
week
is.
in January. First week in January.
Yeah, I think it's doubtful that it would be done by then.
So I don't see the benefit of doing it, the study before July, the first week in July.
The benefit would be that if you're talking about bringing the maintenance funds for buildings into a common fund with some assignment knowing where that's going to go. I think you were talking about that at a previous meeting.
Well, what's being discussed, I think, is major building funds, like roofs and so on, yes, but the traditional doors and windows type of maintenance, or that is being done, now by part of the staff and so on, that's included in the operating budgets.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I thought you were talking about bringing that into a common view of things,
Not
rather than assigning it by building.
Well, maybe the budget committee the selectmen have not heard that proposal
Okay,
yet.
I misunderstood you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I mean, that may happen tomorrow, or may happen in the next 5 or 6 weeks as the budget committee meets, but right now, the selectmen have not shown any indication of wanting to bring common day-to-day maintenance things across all departments into one budget.
Right. Yeah, this is all timing. If this waits until July, which is sort of the way it heads on paper without this presentation, then that means things just keep going the way they're going next year, and then the following year you'd have a better understanding of what ought to be done, where we ought to correct course, or whatever it may be.
I'm not
If
sure.
you get this done before July, you have a better ability to point that ship during the next implementation of the next budget.
I'm obviously, I don't want to pursue the point too hard, but I don't understand how getting a study done that we won't have done by town meeting, and therefore impact the FY25 budget, why that timing is important here. I'm missing the point, I'm sorry. Long term, I think Bob knows, I'm very much in favor of doing this, but I'm not understanding the reason for doing it very quickly. Unlike the previous study where there's something to be done by town meeting, it doesn't sound like this is going to impact anything that happens in March. That's all I'm saying.
It's not going to impact the amount of money that gets put into the budget. That's based on some assumptions that have been made to this point. It may warrant relooking at where that money actually gets spent during the next budget year, but that's really what
That's
happened.
perfectly possible, just as we're doing with the Collier study that we just approved. We're rejiggering money to be able to pay for that. And so any department head can spend money differently and within his or her appropriation without our approval.
Yeah, okay. I understand. I'm not
a
the
supporter, I
department
just
head.
don't understand the urgency of doing this before July 1st. That's all.
It simply backs up the time at which you have better information to make some decisions on.
Yeah. I think Phil's interested in categorizing what the needs are. And if you start now, you'll have a better idea. And that's the way, my takeaway from this, is that correct?
Yeah.
which makes sense in one respect.
But won't have any impact until FY '26. Because whatever,
Right.
however the money is appropriated in March,
Yeah.
that's all we'll have in
Right.
terms of appropriations. And then it can be, they could spend less on uniforms and more on paint.
But if they have an idea of what things are, then it may make it into the 25 budget, correct? No?
No, because he's saying that it's not going to be ready by January.
You don't think there's any piece of this that will be?
To be honest, I'd be doubtful.
All right.
I doubt them,
Okay.
but I really doubt me. Yeah, that's all.
I mean, it'd been great if we
Sounds
had
good, but-
thought about 3 months about doing this.
Right, yeah,
But now we're up against a very short time window.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you have any,
So it's not, I'm not opposed to doing it, it's just I don't see why
the timing of it?
time.
Okay. Okay.
I would just stress that probably the most important piece of this whole thing is my last sentence. Don't cut it out of next year's budget if you don't approve
All
it
right.
now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's cold in here. I mean, I know we have feet now.
You want to try to eat?
Yeah, it's just, ugh. Okay, we're good with that. Sherry Williams is going to talk to us about a vacancy on the Board of Trustees.
Sherry Williams, Library Board of Trustees. Board member resigned on October 18th, Sarah Short. Sorry, I thought it was on. Oh, that's where the green light is, okay. By the time I finish with all of this, I'll understand all the technology. Sarah Shoik resigned from the board on October 18th, and to fill that vacancy until the next election, the Library Board of Trustees recommends that the Board of Selectmen appoint Tom Carley, who is currently an alternate and has agreed to serve if he's appointed.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Okay, do I have a motion to appoint Tom Carley as library trustee?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Sherry.
Thank
We're
you
all
very
set.
much.
Does anyone have any comments that they'd like to make that are not on our agenda tonight? Joe?
Joe Cardillo, resident. Now, it's not a comment, it's a question that I perhaps should have asked earlier. We've already decided to spend $40,000, and like the project manager suggested, the stuff coming out is only as good as the stuff coming in. BB talked about who would be on this committee. We know you three will. Kim will help, and you will. The project manager suggested that in other towns, he sees their building and facilities committee get involved in these kinds of things. Since that was disbanded, I am curious, who else are you considering, or do you have any intent of adding anyone else other than this close-knit group to give input on sites and other things that need to be addressed as you spend this $40,000? It's just a question.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a committee, and certainly we want people who maybe have a background in policing that would be valuable on this committee, and there are several people already that we know about. The one major point is that they are in favor of a new police station and not a committee comprised of people who are definitely against it. So that will be one of the major reasons we would choose somebody. So we will absolutely ask people to be part of this, but I think a policing background will be vital to this committee.
I just want to say, I agree. I can't see you, Joe, through the thing. I believe we do need a committee to work on this together. We've got to have as many people involved without making it too large of a committee, and people that are willing to put in the commitment. I'm hoping to look to him for recommendations on membership in that committee, not only police experience, but building experience, and architectural, things like that. I actually made up a small list myself of people in the community that I think would be wonderful, including our new facilities director for the school district. I think would be a great addition to that type of committee. So that's why I see it. I want as many people involved. I want the whole community to accept this, right, and be transparent through the whole process.
Yeah, it's not a matter of who you put on this board, whether they're in favor or not in favor of a police station. I'm not looking to say we need a variety of different opinions. I think everyone is probably of the mind that the police department is in need of some help with the physical plant. We just want to ensure that all the information is getting through, because my takeaway is very different than Bill Helm's takeaway on what that last town vote was. It wasn't so much, you can shake your head, but let me finish. It wasn't so much that the appraisal didn't come in correctly. I think the town would have spent $1 million or $2 million or $3 million. And again, I'm a flatlander. 40-something years does not allow me, the right to say what should happen in a small town. But when I chose an area to live in town, to me it was important. One of the things I was looking for was to be as close to the middle of town as I possibly could be for my kids when I raised them. It was a pleasure and a privilege to be in the middle of town, and parents come to town, drop their kids off at their house while they go to Hannaford's, and come back and get them. There's so many good benefits about being here in the middle of town. And I think more than anything, that 78, almost 80% vote at that last meeting told me as a Flatlander that the citizens of this town really value services in the middle of town. So that's what I want to make sure, that information gets to the board, that it's not colored any differently, that has to do with an appraisal or anything else, that there really is, because when a site, there's the people, the NIMBYs, that don't want it, in their backyard, whether that's what happened at the Bewley land or not. I don't know whether everyone from Hilltop said we don't want it there. The site seemed viable. It seemed like it could happen. We may have an opportunity to purchase what's next door. McEnroe is moving. Maybe we can buy it. Maybe we can accomplish what needs to happen, and that's keep the facility running while we build a new facility, if the project manager says there's enough square footage there. So I just want to ensure that all options are looked at, and not be so caught up on whether we have 25 different viewpoints on this committee. I just want to make sure all the information is getting to the project manager, that there are some sites that work, whether it's Bewley, whether it's Broome, or whether it's McEnroe. I want to ensure that those sites are all put in the mix.
Me too.
That's it. And that's why simply while I'm asking who is going to, and hope you have an open mind on who else you put on the board. And I'm not suggesting I want to be on that board.
Okay, well,
So.
The thing is, though, I didn't feel that we had a good group that was all in favor of doing something positive for the police. And I don't want to see that happen again. I mean, this has been delayed a number of times, and I think that now we need to move forward. It's well past the time to do that, so.
I'm not sure what group you're speaking about, because you comprised the group.
Well,
you made that group up.
No, actually, I didn't, Joe. You're always talking about unanimous decisions. That one was not unanimous.
Okay.
But the original decision in 2018 to find a new site was unanimous, and then the board changed and different opinions came about, and I was not in favor of a lot of things that happened. So I want to make sure this time that we all have a collegiate group that treats our department heads with respect, and go forward and try to find something that would be of great benefit to the town of New London. That's my goal.
Yeah, and things change, right? So I'm hoping we can have that type of group that does it, because even amongst this board, you've decided you're going to spend $40,000. You've found a way to get it out of the budget, and that's fine. I'm not arguing that. even in spite of the fact that there were people amongst this group that said we should not spend any more money on studies. I've heard that over and over again. But things change, Janet, right? You're the one who said, why do we spend money on another study? Let's get it done. Well, I'm okay, let's spend the money.
Yeah, this is the best avenue, I think, that will give us a way to get to the goal that I think the town of New London would like to see.
Okay. I look forward to see who you have comprising the rest of the board.
We're not going to keep it from you. Okay? And let's see, where else? Anything else on that one? Did we? Okay, any further comments, public comments? No? Body camera funding. Chief Cobb.
Kim and Lynn will correct me. So our body camera and dashboard camera project, I had come to the board with a grant opportunity some months ago that through the state of New Hampshire, there was a grant available for 50% of the cost up to $50,000 for grants, and I subsequently applied for that grant and it was awarded. So we have our body cameras, we have our dashboard cameras, they are operational, and they are a great success all around. So now comes the time to pay for said body and dashboard cameras. So the grant portion that we were awarded comes to $49,560, and therefore the town portion remainder is $56,960. So I come before you tonight to discuss the town portion, how that would be paid for. Because I didn't know this grant was even going to exist, this is not in my operational budget at this point, that amount of money. So there are some other options that the board may wish to consider.
We still have $200,000 in our ARPA funds.
Yes.
And this would be a legitimate expense for that. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, okay. Anybody have any questions? Bill? Baby? Do we need a motion to, okay. Do I have a motion to approve $56,960 of ARPA funds for body camera funding?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. Next, we have our planning chairman and our chairman of the planning board here to talk about the capital improvement program.
Yeah, but not that big. We have these little ones.
Wait, yeah, thank you. Yep. Yeah, I guess I do somewhere.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I do have that.
So I don't, is this on? Doesn't seem it, okay. So I don't intend to go project by project and discuss each one, but I will start to give you an overview of the overall CIP process, some of the highlights of the new projects or things that have changed, and then also some new sort of backside of the Excel. Can anyone hear me? All right, so that's a lot better, so I'll start over. Yeah, sorry. So I don't intend to go project by project, but I will give you an overview of how we went about the adoption and the design of the CIP, some of the highlights of projects that are within the CIP, and then some of the different things from this year. So Tim is with me. Tim is the chair of the planning board, and he was the chair of the CIP committee this year. Along with Tim, we had planning board members Paul Vance, David Royal, Bill Helm, Paul Gorman,
and then we had Charlie Kelsey representing the Budget Committee. And so Bill was on the committee as a planning board member because he sits on the planning board as the selectman. So CIP committee doesn't typically have a specific seat for the selectman necessarily. It's planning board and budget committee member. So we met, I believe it was a total of 5 times. The first couple of meetings are the typical kickoff meetings, logistics, how we're going to handle that this year. And then we have 3 to 4 meetings with each one of the department heads. And so we sit down with them. They provide the data to us that we are really just plugging into the spreadsheet on their behalf to discuss and discuss the projects, what their needs are, what year they think the expense is, and then what's changed from previous years, because we do this every year, and as we've seen about some of the unexpected expenses tonight on other things, their budgets change every year. And so we go through and ask if there's anything that needs to be changed, and then put in anything that's new. So one component that we did a little bit differently this year that you don't necessarily see in the printed PDF report, but there's a back end of the Excel spreadsheet now that Cara was really instrumental in helping us put together to allow for budget committee members and select board members, and certainly if someone from the public requested the document, they could use it too, but to actually query the different projects. So we organize the sort of official CIP on a department level basis. But if you wanted to specifically look at pickup trucks that maybe are among multiple departments in similar years, but not the same year, but maybe you're going to get a fleet deal to buy 3 trucks in one year versus 2 in one and 1 in the next, it gives you that ability to go in and look at those. So it's a part of the Excel file, so it's not as easy to just readily post that on the website. So we have it, and we'll send it to the 3 of you and to the budget committee members. And hopefully you find that as a useful tool. I think the committee members all felt that, allowing the CIP to be manipulated a little bit more just for your own individual planning purposes as you're going through would be helpful. The CIP is not a funding source, so the merits of these projects are really debated through the funding portion of the budget committee's review and the selectmen's review. And it's the obligation of those 2 groups to decide what goes in an annual budget. The CIP committee, though, they discuss the different projects and when they should fall and what they should entail. They don't necessarily take the approach that they are the ones to weigh whether or not it's a worthy project. And so that really comes with the responsibility of the selectmen and the budget committee. Any questions before I go on? Or no? Okay. So you'll see CIP committees or CIPs cover a wide variety of plans, but are always seem to be equipment and building heavy. This year we set the threshold at $50,000 for a capital project, with some exceptions to that. There's some things like mowers and public works that they really see as a vital capital purchase, and it's helpful for them to be able to include those in these plans, but they don't happen to hit the $50,000 mark. We had been at a $20,000 threshold for, I think, close to 10 years at this point. Given that there's not much to purchase for $20,000 anymore, with the way that inflation has gone, we felt that it was time to reassess that and to increase the sort of bottom line figure. So, for the library, it's not going to be a surprise that their ask is usually very building heavy. They have a beautiful old building, but it takes a lot of work to keep it up, and they're constantly pecking away at that list. Again, for public works, you won't be surprised that it's a lot of equipment, but it's also notably infrastructure like sidewalks and their plans for the improvements of those sidewalks over the coming decade. We included the sewer department as a separate entity from Public Works. Essentially, Public Works covers the road side of things, even though sewer is under their umbrella. It's nice to see them separately. And And we also include the water precinct. This is obviously not something that is within the purview of our town voters, but it's helpful also just to know what other projects are coming along. And so they typically send us any data that they can. The fire department, it's obviously on a pretty regimented schedule of vehicle and apparatus replacement, and so you'll see that in there. I'm sure that doesn't come as any surprise. One spot that did change this year a bit, the Conservation Commission, for many years has had a figure of $500,000 10 years out. In the Conservation Commission is always difficult to quantify for a capital improvement project because they don't really know exactly what land it is that they want to buy until the opportunity arises, and that is usually not easily seen 10 years out. And so how we've handled that is we've put in a $500,000 placeholder in years past, with then the obligation falling to the Budget Committee and the Selectmen to decide how they want to plan for that. If it's an annual capital reserve appropriation, or if they simply want to bond when the time comes, or wherever they may find the money, Mary Haddad, whatever else it may be. However, this year, the decision was made to increase that from $500,000 to $1 million with the way that the real estate market has gone. The land that the Conservation Commission is typically interested is usually of some high value, of whether it's has a nice view, or a good woodlot, or just significant in size. It's unlikely that it would be $500,000 or less in the market that we're in at this point. So we felt like from a planning figure, it was prudent to increase that. And then you'll notice in the police department, we understand that a police station is the desire of the select board, and including that in here as part of their request in the CIP is important. Having a figure to tie to that is hard when there are so many unknowns. Information I learned tonight from the gentleman that was here, I think we perhaps have overestimated in here based on the $600 to $800 a square foot. If a 10,000 square foot building is what we're looking at, then the $8 to $10 million may be more than what's needed, which obviously we won't know more until, down the road. We had split out a separate line item for that, for land acquisition, closing, planning, and design costs. Again, this is really a shot in the dark because the land values can vary significantly. We put a figure in the next fiscal year of $700,000, but left the total project cost in there with a wider range, just to sort of give a nod to the fact that that is really not a set in stone number, and there are so many variables that could play into that, as you are well aware. I think that's mostly the high points. Tim, do you have anything else you want to?
Did you want to talk about the planning board itself and the street study?
Oh, sure. Did I skip that? Sorry. That's
That was at the end.
Yeah. Yep. So the planning board has never had its separate place in the CIP. Oddly, it's their function, and then they've never utilized it. But as you are aware, in the last 2 budget years, we had hoped to work on a project on Main Street to look at a variety of things, from urban design to complete streets and pedestrian access and vehicular access. Unfortunately, in the time frame that was discussed, the cost of consultants changed dramatically, and what we thought at one time we could accomplish for around $20,000 it seems incredibly unreasonable at this point. We also had a bit of a shift in priorities. I think 3 years ago, when this started, when it grew out of the master plan, housing was important, but it was not quite as important as it is now, post-pandemic. And so between the fact that it's was difficult, I think it still is in some regards, to get consultants to reply to a request for proposals. The cost had gone up significantly, and we've been working with some consultants through the Housing Commission to really further that effort. We have not moved forward with the Main Street study in the last fiscal year. We still very much want to do that at some point. We've tied what we think is a more realistic number to it after understanding what some other projects of similar nature have gone for, and what a Housing Commission consultant has also put together for a project that they want to do. Interestingly, that project is sort of waiting for final funding approval through a grant, and we're still very hopeful that that's completed before we go into this, because there are facets of that project that we can use in a potential Main Street study, so that hopefully we are not having to spend non-grant money on stuff that we can get a grant consultant to pay for. So hopefully that does align. So we put it in 2026 with the hope, I hope I'm not jinxing us, Peter, but that we are able to move forward in the next 12 months with the Housing Commission grant, which is about $103,000 for their work. So hopefully we'll get some good information from that will feed into this.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
Great. Thanks, Adam. This is great. Questions, Bill?
No, since I was part of preparing that, I think I'll just
Okay.
Yeah, I would just thank all the
Forget anything?
members of the committee who worked hard on this. So appreciate
Yeah.
everybody's work on this,
Yeah,
and
it's
Adam's
very
as well.
extensive. It's
Really good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a great document.
And I would say, as you're going through the budget process, and if you find the back end of the Excel helpful, provide some feedback for us. This is the first year that we're doing it. If there's a different way that it can be organized, I think we'll certainly be open to that. So what ways you found it helpful, and maybe what ways you didn't think it provided the capability. And certainly there's budgeting software that I know that Lynn is learning a lot more about, where a lot of those have CIP components that would be much easier than Excel wonks trying to manipulate these worksheets. So they could change.
And the ones I'm looking at do have that. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you,
Excellent.
both of you. Thanks for coming. Okay, does anyone have any questions for them before they leave? No? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Town administrators report.
One of the main thing that's on everyone's mind is tax rate, and we are working hard with DRA to try and get our tax rate. They have all the information they need from the town with regard to the town values and revenues and everything, so we're going to keep on them and try and get our tax rate as soon as possible. And once we do get the preliminary, we'll arrange a meeting for the selectmen, because you'll need to figure out how much unreserved fund balance to use. So that's coming up, hopefully soon. The only other thing is the Halloween trick-or-treating. You can see on the agenda, it's yellow. Hopefully, everybody should know that Sunday portions of Main Street will be closed 4 to 6. And I want to reach out to both Chief Cobb and Lyon. They put in a ton of work. I mean, it's just an amazing amount of work that they have to put in to kind of plan for any eventuality that could happen during that time. And I think that, we should all appreciate how much effort it goes into it. It sounds like just a fun trick-or-treating, but the part they work on isn't as much fun. I mean, they really put a lot of work, so I really applaud them. And I don't know if they have comments to say. Do you want to say anything about what's going to go on Sunday? A lot of us will be there to sort of help, but really the work and the planning is a lot.
Yes, certainly a lot of hours went into the planning of it, and there'll be 3 dozen plus first responders there that day between police, fire, and EMS workers. So Chief Lyon and I have gone through every possible scenario. I mean, our everyday work is dealing with worst case scenarios, so we try to plan for the worst and hope for the best. But as we can all appreciate, hope isn't a plan. So the trick-or-treating is, the closure on Main Street is from Seamans Road here to the Barn Playhouse at Williams Street. Traffic will be detoured down Williams Street to Everett Park, Barrett Road, and up to Squires. There will be no parking along the entirety of Squires from Main to Everett. all along Everett Park, all along Barrett Road. If you drove on those roads today, you might see some grade stakes in the ground, and that'll be Putnam Kidder and his team will put up some no parking signs on Saturday morning. The reason for the no parking on those roads is so that we can allow the detour to be effective all the way down so that people aren't trying to swerve in and around parked cars. We will put a couple of our speed feedback signs on Everett Park and Barrett Road just to try and reiterate to people that it's a detour and it's not a racetrack to get down there. And so then at 6 o'clock, the road will be opened up, and Chief Lyon and I are going to reallocate our resources from the closure to the other items that are happening, like the Monster Bash at the SAU Gymnasium from 5 to 7. It's a dance, and they'll have some snacks and I think other fun things. And then there's the Spooky Walk from 6 to 8. 6 to 7 is kind of for the younger kiddos, and 7 to 8 is a little bit spookier version, I suppose, for the older kiddos. So it's the event has gotten much larger already and much longer already. So it requires, like Kim was alluding to, a significant amount of planning and just where the resource is going to go and who do we have, and it's a sizable event. We plan for several thousand people. I don't know what the weather is going to do this year, but we're having it on Sunday, so.
Thank you, Chief Cobb. Thank you, Chief Lyon. I know it's been, it's such a wonderful thing for the kids, and I know it means an inordinate amount of work for you all, but still, it's wonderful to be able to do that.
And just to reinforce your statement there that it is for children, and I would like to stress that all of these events are alcohol-free. So in the past, there have definitely been years where we have adults walking up and down the road, and we certainly know that what's in your tumbler might not just be pumpkin juice. So I stress that all events are alcohol-free because indeed these are for children to trick-or-treat.
Right.
Not an excuse for folks to walk up and down the middle of Main Street with alcoholic beverages. So.
Okay. Thank you. Chief Lyon, do you have anything you want to add?
I think Chief Cobb did an amazing job. The only thing I'd like to add is we will have an EMS station at the fire department, so there'll be an ambulance allocated for this event. We also, through Putnam Kidder, have expanded the restrooms, so over near the SAU, started the Spooky Walk, and strategically near the information booth and the town offices, there'll also be some facilities, but mostly thanks to those that are volunteering for the no parking, the candy that was donated, and obviously the first responders taking time out of their weekend to help out. As the chief had indicated, it does take a significant amount of planning, and our goal is for everyone to have a great time, and so that's what we're looking forward to. And as she indicated, hopefully the plans on our part lead to a successful and fun event for the town.
Sure. Well, thank you, really. Thank you all. Does anyone have any questions for either of our chiefs? No?
I have a question for Kim. Putnam has enough volunteers all lined up to help with this event?
Yes, I think we're doing good with volunteers. They've gone through the parking training because we want to make sure our volunteers are properly trained
yeah.
to do what they're supposed to do.
We had them take the Primex course, the crossing guard course. I think we're all set for volunteers for the traffic closure. I guess if anyone had any questions about volunteers for some of the other things, the Monster Bash and Spooky Walk, you could reach out directly to Putnam. But I think we're good for the traffic closure volunteer portion.
Good.
We had a planning meeting on Wednesday. I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Committee reports. Bill, do you have anything?
Oh, sure. The planning board. The planning board met on Tuesday night, and we approved a tree cutting in the Stream Conservation Overlay District, and we heard a preliminary site plan review for a new commercial building at 10 Main Street. Then also went through a discussion about several possible zoning amendment changes for the town meeting in March.
Bill, you want to tell everybody where 10 Main Street is?
10 Main Street is when you are coming into town from Newport Road, you turn into Main Street. It's the immediate vacant lot on the right, just before you get to the building where Frank Anzalone and others have now occupied. So it's a very difficult site. The agreement already is that the egress from the condition of approval, the egress from the site will be right turn only.
Thank you.
I also, Bob, I was unable to go to the waste reduction meeting this morning. Bob, is there anything to tell people about on that? Bob Harrington was there. He made the mistake of telling me on the way in.
Bob Harrington, Public Works Director. I'm filling in for Bill, I guess. We met with, I can't, excuse me, I can't remember the name of the gentleman from Hannaford's, George, I think it was. Very nice gentleman. They are big into trying to do what's right for the environment. Big into changing packaging to try to make it more recyclable. One of the things they're looking into is clamshell containers. They're thinking of splitting it in half with a container on the bottom that's more cardboard that can be either composted or recycled. But great conversation with them on a numerous amount of different things that they're looking to do towards the future. I don't have all of the information. I got there a little late, but did get to chat with them. We're going to chat more in the future. I gave him my card. He has avenues for other areas that interest me, and likewise for him coming to see me. I have some contacts. So. Good meeting.
Good, thanks. And I assume you're going to cover the sewer thing, Janet?
Oh, our sewer meter?
Yes.
Let's see, what do we?
Or I can do it, but.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so as you all know, the selectmen are also the sewer commissioners in town, and we had a monthly meeting. We meet sometimes quarterly, but a monthly meeting last week with our counterparts in Sunapee to go over the budget. The wastewater treatment plant in Sunapee is a separate budget entity, and we went over it, and for the first time, Kim tells me, in a number of years, we actually impacted the budget and reduced it by several $1,000s. So it's a long time coming, but we did that, and I don't think the Sunapee staff are speaking to us any longer.
Yeah. In addition to that, one of the major items on their budget is electricity, and so we questioned about the fact if they've pursued ground-mounted solar at the wastewater treatment plant. It's a perfect site for that, and there's some issues between the fact that the town owns that property and whether or not they wanted to spend the money to put it there and then charge the sewer users. So there was some confusion on what's going on within the town, and we thought that might be a good idea to go, the three of us, to go to one of the selectmen's meeting and find out what the situation is, because I really feel like when they have such a huge electric bill that it might be helpful to do that. The town of New London pays approximately 60% of Sunapee's budget, because that's how much we used. That's what we send over to the wastewater treatment plant. And in case anybody wants to know, we do have, we had to update that facility, and it cost the town of New London approximately $5 million, which we're getting close to paying it off. But everyone in the town, all members of this community, pay a third of that tax that Sunapee charges us, and then the actual sewer users pay 2/3 of the bill. So the town felt, I don't know how many years ago, that it was important to have municipal sewer and to support not only the hospital, but the college, and that's why the formula was developed that way. Sunapee does not do that, by the way. If you're not a sewer user, you don't pay for anything. So it was kind of interesting. It was an interesting meeting, I should say.
Tim, I see you sitting in the back there, and you're on the Energy Committee also. I've given Kim information about this whole issue of ground-mounted solar proposal for the wastewater site down there, and perhaps you could grab it from her in the next Energy meeting. We would encourage our Energy Committee to work with the selectmen there. They have disbanded their energy committee for reasons that are not clear, but there's a huge opportunity here. So hopefully our energy committee can help us with this, because I think we're beginning to realize that we need to spend a little bit more time looking at the cost of what's being done down there.
Okay, Bibi, do you have any?
No.
All right. This morning, we had a Tri-Town Assessors meeting. Our town administrator and myself were there, and we went over a number of items, and Chris McAllister, our assessor, has completed the reassessment of the town of New London. As you all know, you've gotten, I think, information regarding what your new valuation is of your property. Many people are concerned about what's going to happen when they get their tax bill, which is understandable. And we don't know at this point, as Kim mentioned, the DRA has not given us the tax rate. So until that happens, we really don't know. Chris said it went really well. It didn't go well in Newbury last year, and so they were concerned that they might have feedback from people that wasn't always positive. But they said in New London, they really didn't encounter any problems. So we're lucky that didn't happen. They did a good job. It's a hard job to do because it's your money, and people get very sensitive about what the valuation is of their property. So anyway, that was that. Do I have a motion to approve the work session minutes of October 5th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we're going to go into non-public session.
So I move we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A3, capital I, to discuss personnel matters.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say your name.
B.B. Casey.
Yes? Okay, Janet Kidder, yes?
Wilhelm, yes.
Okay. Thank you all.